Well, you've seen this on TV, I'm sure, and maybe even in your neighborhood. I don't know, but it's tiny homes. And they seem to be, in terms of house pricing, house accessibility, especially for first-time home buyers, a really good first step and a good investment for many when it comes to getting into the market. Phil, I'm sure you've seen your fair share of tiny homes, whether it's on a piece of farmland in the community where there's a lot of space and they're easily built upon those lands, or in a suburban setting where people are adding these tiny homes, maybe to a backyard if it's big enough, or if it's a laneway house. Your thoughts on tiny homes? Is it the future?
Yeah, it's a great question, Rick. As we've seen in recent history, the zoning bylaws in our municipalities continue to be challenged every single day. And these tiny homes are often a hot topic of, another way or an option to affordable housing and more housing in terms of what we need and what's going on in our current environment. The way I see tiny homes, dirt is still expensive no matter what way we put it, right? And these tiny homes will have to go somewhere. Some way, somehow. So, unless you own a piece of a real estate already, it's very difficult to get into the market and buy a tiny home, right? And have to put it somewhere. So, that right. barrier to entry in terms of buying a tiny home for someone to live in, for the first-time home buyer or for the person who is looking for an affordable option to real estate, they have to put it somewhere. And when it comes to financing, if you're going to go buy a lot for this, well, the financing on a lot is much more difficult to get than financing on a traditional home. For example, if you find a lot for $200,000 or $150,000, the bank isn't willing to give you that money, right? You'd only get maybe 20% financing on that, in comparison to only having to put 5% or 10% down on a traditional home. So, the tiny homes are going to be popular, but in my opinion, they're going to be popular for the real estate investor. They're going to be popular for the person who wants to put in a laneway home or put in a home in their backyard and add another suite, or somebody who has a cottage and is looking to maximize their investment potential and add maybe 2 or 3 to their property and turn them into Airbnbs. So the way I see these tiny homes working is it's more attractive to the real estate investor looking to maximize their profitability in comparison to being attractive to the first-time home buyer looking for housing affordability. If somebody has $50,000, right, and one of the highlights in this article is that, it's a huge cost advantage. It's, $50,000 for a tiny home in comparison to $500,000 to, a traditional home or condo. But that person who has $50,000 is they go buy a tiny home. It's, where are you going to put it? Now you need to find a place to put it. You need to hook up sewers. You need to hook up water. So there's more additional costs that go into that. Whereas if you have $50,000 for a down payment, you can get, if you're working, you can get approved for a mortgage and the bank would be willing to lend you the rest of the money. Right. So in terms of these tiny homes, like I said, I think it fits the investor who would be willing to put it on certain properties, given, where the municipal zoning bylaws go, and be able to rent it out. And maybe that brings us more housing affordability in terms of rentals and units and access to that. But in comparison to a person who's looking for housing affordability to get into the market, I don't think this fits their framework or checks their boxes in terms of being able to get into the market. So, very unique. I think they've caught the attention of a lot of people given their exposure, and exposure HGTV and articles like this where they do get a lot of attention that way. And there's a lot of tiny home companies that are popping up. I know we have one in Grimsby that's right off the highway. And we, I was on their website. I saw this article come out and I went right to their website, and they're quite attractive. Like they look like very functional living spaces, and they're done up really well. And, they, even in comparison to those RVs and trailers, how they all like, they expand out, and it's really nice. They're really nice places to live. So, they're super attractive, but in the end, they still need somewhere to be, and they still need somewhere to go. And the cost of dirt continues to rise and is expensive.
Let me ask you this, and I'll preface my comments by pointing to a recent survey that was done by the Canadian Real Estate Association that said 30% of millennials view tiny homes as a viable first-time investment. And that's probably true when you're looking at the price point and the cost comparatives. Is there, and you mentioned the company in Grimsby, is there a company, or maybe it doesn't even exist yet, that is going to say to itself, listen, we're going to build a whole subdivision of tiny homes. This is going to be your first entry point into the market kind of community. Maybe it's a seniors kind of community where, they want to downsize, and here's a great way to downsize. You got a tiny home. Is from a development standpoint, I know you referenced the cost of dirt, and that is 100% accurate. Would it be cost prohibitive for a developer to build a bunch of tiny homes as opposed to that same lot building single family homes or, some townhomes or row houses? Would that be more cost prohibitive building a bunch more tiny homes?
Yeah, we just haven't seen it done yet, right? And I think for a developer who's looking at this scenario is, in terms of they want profitability, they want to maximize their investment. Would they have a better opportunity in terms of cost to build a $750,000 detached home or $1 million detached home in comparison to a $50,000 tiny home, right? I think it takes someone to jump in and do it first before we see more people doing it. But would I be surprised if we saw an entire subdivision of tiny homes in the near future? No, I wouldn't be surprised. I think there's areas where this could work, but I think it would have to be turned more into a rental environment in comparison to the end user that's buying them, and then having to go out and look for a spot to put it. So the way I see it working is if a developer or an investor had a plot of land, they would be able to go out and maybe buy 20, 30, 40 homes and put them all there, but turn into a landlord and be someone who would be renting them out at a super cost-effective rate to be attractive to people that are looking for lower rent. So I think that would be an opportunity, but it would be where I see this happening. It would be difficult to picture it in our city, Hamilton. But I think in some of the northern areas or some of the more remote rural areas, I think this could be an option for developers and for investors.
One of the things I thought of too, and not necessarily the traditional tiny home, but I know Elon Musk has his modular housing company down in the U.S. And obviously it's a little bit different if you're living in basically, let's just call it a train-sized car that they would see on a train. It's not as pretty in terms of what another tiny home would look like, and maybe a bunch of them might be a little bit of an eyesore. And from a development standpoint, the ROI is probably not going to be as great as the setting that you laid out. If a developer is building, I don't know, 50, $750,000 homes as opposed to 75, $100,000 homes.
But
we know which way the developer's going to go.
But what about this? Like there's raw land right now that's just not being used for anything. And maybe this land is, whether it's waiting to be turned into development land or, used to like there's a ton of raw land out there that's just has no current use, and it's not even farmland. So what about if these types of homes are able to be placed there until there's a future use, that's whether it's development or what have you, for that specific piece of land? I think it's a great solution for that, right? Where this, specific developer might be waiting on zoning, might be waiting on or whatever, right? And we've seen, all the red tape, and it's been highly talked about and highly analyzed in terms of buying a piece of raw land, and by the time it gets to the point where there's a shovel going in the ground, could be 15, 20 years in some cases. Well, if there's a way to use that land, and this might be an option for them where they're creating housing on future development land that will eventually be turned into maybe detached houses or townhouses or condos, but at least it's being used for something in the meantime. I think that could be a sustainable option, and you know, for people, and it'll help housing affordability.
In the same sense, because there might be some people listening out there right now thinking, I don't want to see a tiny home neighborhood in my neighborhood, right? Like this might be a bit of an eyesore, and that leads me into, you know, everyone wants to see someone in a house. I don't think anyone is against, you know, not having that option, right? But there is NIMBYism at play, right? Let's build a bunch more duplexes and triplexes and, you know, multi-unit homes for individuals. But a lot of polls say that while a lot of Canadians want to see these increased density projects, they don't want them in their neighborhood. It's really a big double-edged sword. Yeah,
big time. And where do you go, right? Like we've seen the whole, you know, Greenbelt, let's call it, scandal happen, right? Where we understand that, you know, we're in a housing crisis still. Just because housing affordability and because the housing market isn't what it once was back in early 22 does not mean we're out of a housing crisis. We're still in a housing crisis. We still need to find a way to build more homes faster. We need to find a way to create more rentals faster. But what's the right way to do it, right? And turning all these single family detached homes into triplexes and fourplexes, like, you know, is that the right way to do it? We don't know, but yeah, the people, you know, in terms of seeing their neighborhoods turn into these multi-level, multi-unit houses, I think for some people it's very difficult to understand and to see. So, you know, as we navigate through this, and we'll call it again, through this housing crisis, we're trying to find the right way to do it, and the correct way to do it. So like you said before, that everyone has a place to live and it is affordable.
So back to this poll regarding higher density homes. There was a poll conducted by Polera that said 60% of Canadians say they support increasing density in cities across the country, but only about 20% said it would be a good thing if it happened in their neighborhood, replacing a single family home with a triplex conversion, if you will. And about 43% of Canadians said they would view a triplex replacing a single family home on their block as a bad thing. But here's the reality, Phil, and you know this more than anybody else. Supply of homes is down. Skilled labor force, there's fewer of them. There's government red tape up the yin-yang. There's fewer municipal planners out there helping to cut that red tape. You talk about the housing crisis. There are multi-levels to this.
Yeah, big time. And it's, where do you start, right? What situation or what level do you tackle first to try and increase this situation and increase the feasibility of this situation? Everyone's going through it right now. Every municipality is going through it right now. And it's everyone's trying to figure out what is the right way to tackle this problem. And I think when these surveys are talked about, I think the common idea is that, you know, investment properties are not taken care of and they're run down, and it's you know, nice neighborhoods are going to be ruined and things like that. But there's, you know, and then you can get into parking, right? Like, you know, if the average driveway can only fit 1 to 2 cars, well, if you got, you know, 3 families living in one house, well, where's everyone? Like, you know, there's so many layers to these problems. And I think when you look back, it's 20 years of all the things that you just highlighted. And it's 20 years of continuing that type of cycle. And this is where we are now. So when you look back, now we're it's completely caught up to us in terms of the municipal red tape and the government's, you know, not being accepting of certain styles of housing and things like that. It's completely caught up to us. So now we got to go into overdrive and try and catch up, because we are now in a housing crisis, right? And you know, do we, you know, in terms of, you know, using our paintbrush and completely changing all the rules and laws and bylaws, what's the ripple effect of that? And I think this is one of them, right? And I think, there's no right answer. I think, every municipality is going to have their own situation of what's going on. We've seen, rent control completely taken out of buildings that are built after 2018. That's one thing that the government's, change to be able to increase the rental apartments and have more housing. So, we're forever changing, we're forever adapting. But it's what are the ripple effects going to be? And I think when you reflect on the last 20 years of the development of cities and municipalities, this is a result of it. And you can't have, this mass immigration without continuing to build homes. It doesn't go hand in hand. And I think we're seeing the effects of it today.
And Phil, before the break, you mentioned the one word that I was going to pounce upon, and that is immigration, because we heard earlier this week from Mark Miller, the immigration minister, who doubled down basically on Canada's immigration targets. 485,000 newcomers to our country next year. The plan is to welcome in 500,000 in 2025 and 500,000 more in 2026. So within the next 3 years, 1.5 million people will be coming to Canada. Not all, obviously, to Hamilton, but to Canada. That's going to add further strain to this country. And the reasoning is, hey, we need more skilled laborers. We need other professionals in this country to help with certain aspects of the working world. But it's going to have a severe impact on housing.
Yeah, the Liberals have been on record stating that they're gonna build our economy through immigration, and they've been upfront and open about it. And these, when you hear about these numbers of people that are immigrating to Canada, it is staggering. And the next question is, well, where are they all going to live, and where are they all going to go? And we continue to be in the middle of a housing crisis. We continue to talk about how many homes we need. The federal government has all these plans and these build more homes ideas and programs, which is great and everything. But when it comes down to the municipal government in terms of pushing these homes across and trying to develop these areas and building more homes, building more communities, there's just too much red tape around it. So there's not this flow of information, or it just feels like not everyone is on the same board in terms of doing one thing and having a reaction to the other. So it's hard to read, it's hard to understand, and it's where are we going to be in 2 to 3 years from now when we have 1.5 more million people in our cities, in our municipalities? And what are we doing to plan for them? And it's just not housing, right? It's infrastructure, it's roads, it's bridges, it's communities, it's schools, it's playgrounds, it's what are we doing to being able to be proactive and understanding that this many people are coming into our area? How are we building up our communities to be able to support that? And I just, you look around and you just don't see it happening. And you can start from the housing area. You just don't see these communities being built. Housing starts are down right now, right? The cost of building, the current market right now, we've seen condo projects not get off the ground. We've seen, both in Hamilton and more notably Toronto right now. Where are we going to be as a housing market when our population is increasing this much, this quickly? So, when we look at it, it's, is it going to get harder for the first time buyer to get into the market? Are the young, Canadians today, is home ownership still a possibility for them, right? It's so many unanswered questions, but it's what are we doing to be able to develop our communities to support this population growth in our communities? And I think it comes down to the municipal levels of government in making sure that they're addressing this and not removing some of the red tape, but having the infrastructure within their organization to be able to help developers push along projects and help these housing starts so that we are ready for them when our population does increase by as you said, 1.5 million in probably the next 3 years.
One of the best headlines I saw about Canada's immigration plan, I think it was in the National Post a few weeks ago, and it basically, I'm paraphrasing, but it basically said, so we're bringing in 1.5 million immigrants over the next 3 years to basically build their own homes, because they're going to need a place to live at the end of the day. And those numbers are going to be, I think, challenging, especially for home builders to keep up with. They're already behind the 8 ball. This is the scenario I see, and we're already seeing it. I just think it's going to erupt even more so. And that is people renting out parts of their homes in bits and pieces, whether it's a basement, a room, a garage, for whatever the sum of money is, that is just not going to be an acceptable place for an individual. But that's all that is on the market, and they'll have to jump at it. We're seeing it here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, that was the beginning of Airbnb. That was the entire point of Airbnb in terms of their initial business model, was to help someone rent out a portion of their home that they're currently living in and turn it into a little bit of an income generator. And it would be a shared style of home. But Airbnb has taken off and has developed into luxury vacation rentals and so on and so forth. But the initial business plan was rent out a room or rent out a basement or rent that out. But yeah, you're right. We're seeing now these listings posted online, whether it's Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji or what have you, and people are now looking to alternative solutions. And I think this is just a result of what's going on in our current society, in terms of where interest rates have gone, where cost of living has gone. And for some people, the difference of them being able to hold on to their house and currently live in the same house that they're living in would be renting out a bedroom or renting out a basement or sharing their living space with someone else to be able to afford their home. I've seen, garages turn into, really nice, beautiful bedroom suites. So that's what, that's what's going on right now. And I think it's just, the reality of our current landscape in society, and in terms of our economic society. Everyone's feeling the pinch right now, and you don't have to be an economist to understand what's going on. I'm in it. I'm talking about it every single day. I'm talking to different home sellers and home buyers. It's gotten really difficult out there for a lot of people who are now needing to tighten up in certain areas and certain aspects of their lives to be able to afford and to be able to get by. And I'm not talking, in terms of affordability, I'm talking about affording their next mortgage payment, affording their next grocery bill, affording their next, cell phone bill or car payment. That's where we are in terms of a society today, due to the high cost of living, due to the increasing interest rates. You can see it. Like you walk through a restaurant, they're not as busy as they used to be. You hear about the attendance at certain sporting events, right? They're having a hard time in terms of getting people into the stadiums and the arenas. There's so many aspects of our life right now that have been so difficult just due to the cost of living. And I think, this is a result of people trying to offset certain costs in their life. And if it's renting out a room or renting out a basement or renting that, it can go a long way for someone helping, to afford their next mortgage payment or afford their next car payment or put their son or daughter through sports. So that's it's serious right now, and I think we're going to see more of this in terms of a lot more of these style of postings of people that are needing to share their home with people to afford their mortgage. But that's what's going on right now.
I don't want to be a Debbie Downer to end the show, but, I'd hate to see, especially in a basement apartment as an example, and, an illegal apartment with, unsafe access to the outdoors should a fire erupt or other things that are just not up to code.
Absolutely.
I'd hate to see, and I'm sure we're going to see it, something tragic happen. And that's the last thing we all want to see, obviously. But we'll leave it there as we're plumb out of time. Phil, I appreciate your time this morning. And a reminder to our listeners, you can listen to the show online through Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcast, Stitcher, and many more. Just search for the Golfi Real Estate Show in your favorite podcast platform. Hit the follow button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget, if you want to sell your house or you're in the market to buy a home, call the #1 RE/MAX team in Canada, the Golfi team, at 905-575-7700, online at robgolfi.com. That's robgolfi.com. Thanks for listening to the Golfi Real Estate Show Hamilton edition. We're back next Saturday at 9 on 900 CHML.